So back in 2017, there was this big bust in Uruguay called Operation Bitcoins. On the surface, it looked pretty simple. They caught a cybercriminal, case closed, right? Well, not exactly. That was really just the beginning of the story. Or actually, the beginning of two totally different stories. So today, we're going to unpack how a single event could spin off into two completely conflicting realities. And right there, that's the central mystery we're looking at. Imagine this. You try to look up the official record for this major cybercrime bust, and you hit a total wall. It makes you wonder, right? What happens when the official story just disappears? What fills that vacuum? All right, so let's get into it. The first, and honestly, maybe the strangest part of this whole thing, is this information vacuum. If you go and search for Operación Bitcoins in the Uruguayan Ministry of Interior's own archives, you get nothing. Zero. It's like it just vanished from the official record. And get this, the problems are just bizarre. We're not just talking about a misplaced file. The ministry's website has press releases that are literally dated for the future, like 2024, 2025. If you search for news from September 2017, when this happened, you get a report on Hurricane Maria. It's this total digital black hole. It really makes you think, maybe some things were never supposed to be on the public record in the first place. Okay, so with that void in mind, let's dive into the first story, Narrative A. This is the version that exploded in Uruguay back in September 2017, and it was super straightforward, all coming from police sources, painting a really clear picture of a crime. And this was the headline that really set the tone for everything. It's dramatic, it's punchy, and it leaves no room for doubt. Hackers stole data from a health provider and extorted them. The story was simple. A guy named Alberto Daniel Hill stole sensitive patient data and tried to blackmail a company. A classic, open and shut crime story. And the demands? It was very modern, very 2017. 15 bitcoins. Now, back then, that was worth about 60,000 US dollars. That one detail made the whole thing feel super sophisticated and newsworthy. It immediately framed Hill as this high-tech, digital bad guy. And to really hammer that image home, the police raided Hill's apartment. Then they did that classic thing where they lay out all the seized items like a trophy case. Laptops, stacks of hard drives, cash in different currencies, even card cloning gear. The message to the public couldn't have been clearer. We got him. This guy is a serious professional criminal. So for everyone in Uruguay reading the news, the story was complete. A neat little package. The good guys, the police, found a threat, they swooped in, and they put the bad guy behind bars. Case closed. Or so it seemed. But then, things get interesting. About a year later, a completely different story starts to take shape. A radically different narrative. And this one wasn't coming from the police. No, this was coming from podcasts, from blogs, and from the guy at the very center of it all. Just listen to this quote. It completely flips the script. All of a sudden, we're not talking about a successful police operation anymore. Now it's a remarkable, sad, unbelievable, yet true story of responsible disclosure leading to imprisonment. The entire narrative gets turned on its head. The heroes of the first story, the police, suddenly look like the villains. And the villain, the hacker, well, now he's the victim. So what's at the core of this new narrative? A really powerful counterclaim. The argument is that Hill wasn't a malicious extortionist at all. He was a security researcher, an ethical hacker who had actually found security holes in the company's system years before, and it tried to warn them about it. And this new story starts to pick apart the first one piece by piece. For instance, Hill claims his confession was forced. His supporters ask, well, where's the actual extortion email? The prosecutors never produced it. And all that so-called criminal equipment, they argue it's just standard gear for any security researcher. And the end result? Hill spent 9 months in prison for what he says was just trying to do the right thing. And the second story didn't just pop up overnight. It was built up, step by step, over years. It really kicked off with an episode of the popular podcast Darknet Diaries. From there, it spread like wildfire through Reddit and the cybersecurity community. It just kept gaining momentum as more and more people heard Hill's side of things. So, this is the big question, right? How does this even happen? How can one single event lead to two completely opposite conclusions? On one hand, you've got a clear-cut crime. On the other, a tragic miscarriage of justice. Well, the answer really comes down to who is telling the story and when they got to tell it. And this is where you see the real conflict. It's all about identity.
On one side, you have the identity that was built by the Uruguayan authorities back in 2017. He is a criminal hacker and an extortionist. But on the other side, you have the identity built by international podcasters and by Hill himself, starting a year later. He's an ethical hacker and a victim of injustice. It's the same person, but with two labels that just can't coexist.
And when you actually break it down like this, you can see exactly where things diverged. The Uruguayan story, it was immediate, it came straight from the police, and it had a very just the facts tone. The international story, though, it came much later, relied on personal stories and blogs, and it was way more empathetic and really critical of the system. Each side was looking at totally different pieces of the puzzle to build its own version of reality.
So at the end of the day, it all boils down to three things: access, timing, and framing. Who did the reporters have access to? Local media got the police narrative. International media got Hill's personal story. And the timing was huge. The first story was breaking news. The second was a slow burn analysis with the benefit of hindsight. Each frame creates its own separate reality.
You know, this one case from a relatively small country has some really big implications for all of us. It shines a light on a huge challenge we face every day. How are you supposed to find the truth when information is so fragmented and the official sources can be, well, completely silent? And make no mistake, this battle over the narrative, it's still being fought right now. This is a look at Alberto Hill's bio on X, or Twitter. He is out there, actively and relentlessly telling his side of the story. He's using social media to try and shape public memory, to advocate for his version of what happened, and to define himself as a victim. And I think that's the real key takeaway here. You've heard the saying, nature abhors a vacuum, right? Well, so does the internet. When official channels are broken or silent or just not trusted, other stories are going to rush in to fill that void. And those stories, the personal ones, the emotional ones, the ones that spread from person to person online, they become incredibly powerful. So, we're left with a pretty tough question. In this world of digital ghosts and competing narratives, who actually gets to write history? Who's the final judge of what's true? Is it the official government record, even when it's full of holes? Is it the media? Or maybe, is it just the individual with the most compelling story and a social media account? It's definitely something to think about.